All right, so digital transformation, everybody's talking about it.
Yeah, it's everywhere.
But honestly, sometimes it feels like nobody actually knows what it means.
Or how to really make it work.
Right, like we know it's a big deal,
Huge.
but how do we actually do it right?
That's the question.
So that's what we're diving deep into today.
Some seriously interesting research on digital transformation.
Think of it as a cheat sheet,
Your shortcut to not just understanding what it really is
but how to actually make it work.
and avoid those like really painful, expensive pitfalls.
Yeah, because we've all seen those.
Oh, yeah.
So let's jump right in.
Let's do it.
So when we say digital transformation, what are we even talking about?
Yeah, what is it?
Well, the research we're looking at defines it as basically using technology to improve how your organization performs.
Simple enough, right?
Sounds simple, but we're talking about massive investments here.
Trillions of dollars globally by 2027.
Trillions with a T.
Yeah, it's a huge opportunity. But here's the thing.
What's that?
This research also points to a shockingly high failure rate.
Really? How high are we talking?
Almost 9 out of 10 digital transformation initiatives.
9 out of 10.
Yeah, they just don't deliver.
Wow. Okay, so before we even get into how to do it right,
Yeah,
we need to understand why so many companies are messing this up.
absolutely.
What's the deal?
Well, it often starts with misdiagnosis. Companies, they see these symptoms, they're like, okay, things aren't working.
Right, like what kind of symptoms?
Things like inefficient processes, struggling to keep up with competitors drowning in data they can't even use.
Silos.
Oh, yeah, tons of silos. Classic organizational headaches, right?
Ugh, been there.
Exactly. But instead of like actually addressing the root cause of these problems, they jump on the latest tech, hoping it'll magically fix everything.
Like a digital Band-Aid.
Yeah, there's an app for that mentality.
But we both know it's not that simple.
Not even close.
It's like our source says, they compare successful digital transformation to a caterpillar becoming a butterfly.
I like that analogy.
But when it's done wrong, all you have is a really fast caterpillar.
Still a caterpillar.
Exactly, still a caterpillar. So how do we actually make that transformation?
That's the million-dollar question, right?
Yeah, right. And it's not just about avoiding failure either.
No, it's about unlocking this massive potential.
Exactly, because the companies that are doing this well,
They're not just keeping pace.
they're blowing everyone else out of the water,
They're seeing higher shareholder returns,
growing their customer base,
streamlining operations.
even managing expenses better.
It's impressive.
So it's like this digital transformation thing done right is like financial and operational nirvana.
That's a beautiful thing.
But with a failure rate that high, it's clearly not easy.
Definitely not.
So let's shift gears now and talk about what's tripping everyone up.
Let's do it.
It's like there's this digital transformation graveyard out there, right?
Yeah.
And it's filled with all these failed projects.
So many.
And we need to figure out how to avoid ending up as another headstone.
Right. Nobody wants to be a statistic.
Exactly. So this research we're looking at, it actually calls out some really common pitfalls
Oh, yeah. It does.
that companies fall into.
Yeah, like classic mistakes.
Yeah. So let's unpack those.
Okay. Yeah.
Because forewarned is forearmed, right?
Exactly.
Boy.
You know what they say? Learn from the mistakes of others.
Exactly. So one that really jumped out at me
Yeah.
was this idea of dogma.
Oh, yeah.
Like you can just blindly follow a methodology
Right.
and expect it to magically work.
Like Agile, for example.
Yeah, agile's a big one.
Yeah. Everyone's trying to be Agile these days.
Right, but our source makes this point that
Yeah.
even the best frameworks
Right.
can become traps
Totally.
if they're not adapted to your specific context.
100%. It's not one size fits all.
Exactly. So it's not enough to just be agile.
Yeah.
You have to understand the why behind it
Yeah.
and when to adapt and when to maybe even throw the whole playbook out the window.
Sometimes you got to go off-road.
Exactly.
And that can be scary for some organizations.
Oh, totally. But I think that's where this idea of dogma can really stifle innovation.
100%, because you're so focused on following the rules.
Right.
That you forget to actually think for yourself.
Right. It's like you're trying to win a cooking competition,
Okay.
but you're so busy following the recipe word for word
Yeah.
that you forget to actually taste the food and make adjustments.
Right. You end up with something bland and boring.
Exactly. A disaster.
Culinary catastrophe.
Exactly.
So what's another pitfall we should watch out for?
Okay, well, this one I think a lot of people can relate to.
Okay.
It's the dreaded tech debt.
Tech debt, the bane of many a CIO's existence.
Right. And I feel like a lot of our listeners probably have some experience with this,
Oh, I'm sure they do.
whether they realize it or not.
Right. It's those quick fixes.
Yes.
Those workarounds.
That seemed like a good idea at the time.
Exactly. You're just trying to get things done right.
Right.
But then they come back to bite you later.
Yes, it's like hiding your dirty laundry under the bed
Okay, I like that.
instead of actually doing the laundry.
Right, because eventually that mountain of laundry is going to come crashing down.
Exactly. And that's kind of what tech debt is. Like, it's this tangled mess of outdated systems and Band-Aid solutions.
That make your systems fragile and insecure.
And it ends up costing you way more time and money in the long run.
Exactly. It's like paying interest on a credit card.
Yes, exactly.
Except it's technical debt instead of financial debt.
Right. And it can really weigh your organization down.
100%.
Okay, so we've talked about dogma and tech debt. What else should we be wary of?
Well, another big one is neglecting the human element.
Oh, right, the people.
Yes, because it's easy to get so focused on the technology itself
Right.
that you forget that real transformation is about people and processes.
It's not just about the tools, it's about how you use them.
Exactly. It's like buying a state-of-the-art espresso machine,
Okay.
but then not bothering to train your baristas.
Right.
You might have the best equipment in the world,
Right.
but you're not going to get consistently amazing coffee
No.
unless you have skilled people who know how to use that equipment properly.
Right. It's the same thing with digital transformation.
Exactly.
Okay, that's a good analogy.
Thanks. I try.
So what other pitfalls are lurking out there?
See, we've got dogma, tech debt, neglecting the human element. Oh, and then there's the classic tool first, not strategy first trap.
Ooh.
Huh?
Yeah, tell me more about that one.
So this is where companies get seduced by the shiny new tech.
Right, the allure of the latest and greatest.
Exactly. But
Yeah.
they haven't actually thought through their strategy.
So they're just chasing shiny objects.
Pretty much, they're like kids in a candy store
Right, and they end up with a bunch of disconnected tools and platforms.
that don't actually solve their business problem.
Right, because they didn't define those problems in the first place.
Exactly. It goes back to that misdiagnosis we were talking about earlier.
Right.
You need to understand where you are,
Yeah.
where you want to go,
Right.
and then figure out which tools will help you get there.
Okay, so strategy before shiny objects.
Always.
Got it.
And that strategy needs to be driven by desired outcomes.
Not just by whatever the cool kids are using.
Exactly. No more silver bullet syndrome.
Right, this idea that one platform is going to magically solve everything.
Yeah. It's a tempting trap, but it's a trap nonetheless.
Right, because digital transformation, it's not a quick fix.
Not at all.
It's a fundamental shift.
It's a journey.
Exactly. And speaking of journeys, another pitfall, our source highlights, is splintered efforts.
Yes. Where different departments are all doing their own thing.
Right, like a bunch of lone wolves.
Exactly. No coordination, no communication.
Just chaos.
Pretty much. And it's
Yeah.
a recipe for disaster.
Right, because you end up with these disjointed systems and processes.
But don't talk to each other.
It's like each department is building its own section of a bridge,
Okay.
but they're not talking to the other teams.
Right.
So you end up with these cool-looking bridge sections,
Yeah.
but they don't actually connect.
And the bridge goes nowhere.
Exactly. It's a disaster waiting to happen.
100%.
Okay, so we've talked about dogma, tech debt, neglecting the human element, tool-first thinking, splintered efforts. Is there anything else?
Just one more, and this one's a biggie.
Okay.
Short-term thinking.
Ah, yes, the enemy of progress.
Exactly, because transformation takes time.
It does.
It takes sustained effort.
And it takes leadership commitment.
100%. Companies that are constantly changing their minds.
Right.
Or cutting corners to hit quarterly targets.
Or just lacking the stamina to see it through.
They're all setting themselves up for failure.
So you need to be in it for the long haul.
Exactly.
Okay, so that was a pretty intense trip to the digital transformation graveyard.
Yeah, we saw a lot of tombstones.
But thankfully, our source doesn't leave us stranded there with just a shovel.
No, they give us a map.
They give us a way out.
A path to success.
Exactly. So let's talk about how to actually do this right.
Let's do it.
So our source outlines 4 key choices
4 big decisions.
that can make or break a digital transformation.
It's decision time.
So what's the first one we need to make?
The first one is about shifting from just implementing technology to actually orchestrating it.
Okay, orchestration. That sounds interesting.
Right.
Tell me more.
So it's about recognizing that transformation isn't just about a bunch of IT projects. It's about creating a symphony of change.
Just symphony.
Yeah, like imagine you hire a bunch of amazing musicians,
Okay.
super talented,
Yeah.
but they don't have a conductor,
Oh, no.
right? They're all going to be playing their own thing.
It's just noise.
Exactly, a cacophony.
So we need a conductor.
They need an orchestrator.
Someone to bring it all together.
Exactly, someone who can see the big picture
Right.
and make sure all the different parts are working in harmony.
So that's what these orchestrators do for digital transformation.
Yeah, exactly. They bring those different stakeholders together,
They break down the silos.
and they make sure everyone is working towards those same goals.
They're like the maestro of change.
I love it.
Okay, so we've got our conductor.
Yeah.
What's the next key choice?
This one is crucial. It's about focusing on outcomes over models.
Okay, so don't get so caught up in being agile
Right.
that you forget what you're actually trying to achieve.
Exactly. Start with the end in mind.
The why.
Exactly. What are those specific measurable business outcomes you're going for?
Define those first.
Then you can figure out which tools and frameworks will actually get you there.
Whether it's agile or lean or something else entirely.
Exactly. It's about picking the right tool for the job.
So outcomes over ideology.
100%.
Love it. Okay, so we've got our conductor, we've got our sheet music. What's next?
Now we need to break down the symphony into manageable movements.
Break it down.
Exactly. Our source calls this whole versus separable.
So instead of trying to tackle this massive transformation all at once,
Right.
you break it down into smaller, more digestible pieces.
Exactly. Bite-sized chunks.
Right, because digital transformation can feel overwhelming,
Totally.
especially for large organizations.
Oh, yeah. It's like eating an elephant.
How do you eat an elephant?
One bite at a time.
Exactly.
And as you're eating that elephant,
Okay.
you can test and learn and adapt along the way.
So it's iterative.
Exactly. You don't have to have all the answers up front,
You figure it out as you go.
and you course correct when you need to.
Okay, so break it down, iterate, make sure it all works together in the end.
That's the gist of it.
Makes sense. What's the final piece of the puzzle?
This one's all about people.
Okay.
It's about shifting from a culture of just communication to a culture of engagement.
So instead of just telling people what to do,
Right.
you actually involve them in the process.
Exactly. You give them a voice,
You listen to their concern.
and you empower them to be part of the solution.
Because real change, it's not something you can force on people.
No, it has to come from within.
It's about creating a sense of ownership.
Exactly.
Yeah.
When people feel heard and valued,
Right.
they're far more likely to get on board with the transformation.
It's like that old saying, people support what they help create.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've talked about the 4 key choices.
Orchestration, outcomes, separable components, engagement.
Big takeaways, but I'm always a fan of real-world examples.
Of course. Let's bring it to life.
So our source mentions this case study with a retailer.
Okay. Yeah, they were struggling with their digital transformation.
What was going on?
So they were investing a ton in new technology,
Okay,
trying to improve their customer experience,
makes sense.
but they weren't seeing the results.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it was a classic case of those pitfalls we were talking about.
So they called in the experts.
Exactly. Our source, Noe Aviel.
Okay, so what did NoABL do differently?
Well, they started by observing.
Observing.
Yeah, they wanted to see how employees were actually using the technology.
So getting into the trenches.
Exactly, seeing how things were playing out in the real world. And what they found was that different departments had these conflicting goals.
Ah, silos again.
Silos strike again.
So how did they address that?
Well, they got everyone in a room,
Okay.
and they facilitated some really productive discussions.
Like couples therapy, but for departments.
Basically, they helped the company clarify their goals, define roles and responsibilities.
Create that shared roadmap.
Exactly. They brought in the conductor,
I love it.
and instead of forcing a one-size-fits-all solution,
Right.
they helped the company break down the transformation.
Into those manageable pieces.
Exactly.
And I'm assuming they made sure to involve employees throughout the process.
Oh, absolutely. They knew that true transformation requires buy-in from everyone,
So they were hitting all 4 of those key choices.
hitting all the right notes.
Did it work?
It did. They saw real improvements.
Like what?
Their core metrics improved. They were making smarter decisions about their innovation investments.
Okay.
And most importantly, customer satisfaction started going up.
Music to any executive's ears.
Right.
So this case study really shows that those 4 choices, they're not just theoretical.
They work
They actually make a difference.
when you put them into practice.
Exactly. So let's bring it back to our listeners.
Okay.
How do you know if your digital transformation is on the right track?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
And our source provides a helpful checklist.
Oh, a checklist. I love checklists.
Who doesn't?
So what are some of the signs that we're headed in the right direction?
Well, one of the biggest ones is what they call greater ease of work.
So less time wrestling with technology, more time for the good stuff.
Exactly when technology is implemented effectively. It should make your life easier, not harder.
It should fade into the background.
Exactly. And empower you to do your best work.
I like it. What else should we be looking for?
Another good sign is what they call healthy disagreement based on data.
So we're allowed to disagree?
Absolutely, but those disagreements should be based on facts and figures, not just gut feelings.
Data-driven debate.
Exactly. It's about having those productive conversations that move the organization forward.
Love it.
Okay, what else?
Well, obviously, you want to see happier customers.
Of course.
If your digital transformation is making things easier for your customers, that's a huge win.
Happy customers, happy life.
Exactly. And speaking of happy,
Yes.
you should also see happier employees.
Less burnout, more engagement. Exactly. Because nobody wants to work for a company that's stuck in the technological dark ages.
No way.
Right. So if you're seeing higher talent retention, that's a great sign.
It means you're creating a workplace that people actually want to be a part of.
Exactly.
Okay, so happier customers, happier employees. What else?
The final sign, and this was really important, is greater agility.
Agility.
Yeah, the ability to adapt and respond quickly to change.
Because the world is changing faster than ever.
Exactly. And the companies that can adapt are the ones that are going to thrive.
So it's not just about surviving this transformation.
Right.
It's about emerging stronger and more resilient.
Exactly. It's about becoming a digital butterfly.
I love it. So to wrap things up, we've covered a lot of ground today.
We have.
We talked about the common pitfalls of digital transformation.
Right, those tombstones.
The key choices that can set you up for success.
The map to get out of the graveyard.
And what a successful transformation actually looks like in practice.
With real-world examples.
Exactly. So hopefully this deep dive will help our listeners navigate their own digital transformation journeys.
And avoid those painful pitfalls.
Exactly, because as we've learned today, digital transformation, it's not a destination.
It's a journey.
A journey of continuous learning and adaptation.
And it's a journey worth taking.
Well said. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of digital transformation.
My pleasure.
Until next time.